Hmm. All right, good morning. Today is Wednesday, the 30th of November. I sent this email out, I don't know, a little over an hour ago. And as it says, we're going to continue on with the database project. This will be a short lecture. My guess is it's going to be less than an hour. There are three things that I want to do today, and they're shown there in the bullet points. First, yesterday, I had some problems when I tried to show the uh, image of a single album when we chose that album in our data grid view, and I've got a fix for that. I'm going to show you that. Next, I'm going to show you some new code, and we're going to add some stuff to our interface to allow us to add a new album to the table, to the albums table. And then finally, we're going to talk about what your requirements are for part one. And these requirements will be due this Sunday, the 4th of December, by 11:59:59. All right, as it says, I will be emailing these requirements out later today. I've got them on my machine, and I will go over them first before I email them out. I've decided that both tomorrow and Friday are going to be lab periods. That should give people hopefully ample opportunity to get everything done for part one of this database project. If you are behind, as it says, after today, we got 11 days. 2 days this week, 5 days the following week, and then 4 days the week after that. All right, so again, the database project, part one requirements will be due this Sunday. Next week, as it says right there, we're going to add the songs table to the project and then talk about how to do database joins in some detail. All right, my hope is that by the end of next week, we'll be done with this project, and then you will have the entire last week of class to work on both fixing up and getting the last part of this project up and running, and also working on your electronic portfolio. All right, so with that said, let me go in here and bring up the project. So as far as where it stands right now, and I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to go over what we did yesterday, but before I do that, all right, I'm not going to go back and rehash what we did 2 days ago, but I am going to go back and talk about what we did yesterday. All right, and basically what we did yesterday is we set it up. We added this picture box that's right here. We added this album search button, and we added this text box. Prior to yesterday, the load data and the splash screen buttons were over here. There was no album search, and there was no text box there. All right. And there also, of course, wasn't the picture box right here. So what did we do in order to be able to get that stuff? All right, let's talk about that first for a couple minutes. All right. When we wanted to load all of our data at once, originally I called this load music data, but I changed it to load all music data to load everything. And that was going to give a call out to get all albums, which is in our albums DAO class. I'm not going to go over that. We've gone through that yesterday and a little bit the day before. But when we want to search for something, I call this load search music data. And the difference is, rather than calling that get all albums, we call get search albums. And what we pass into that is whatever value we put into here. All right. That's this right there. And other than that, it's set up very similar to what we looked at before. All right, so let's take a quick look at that routine. Okay, so we came in, we talked about our connection string, we did the get albums, we did this yesterday, and we talked about it the day before as well. All right, but what you notice when you look in here is there are a lot of similarities between that routine and this routine. So let's talk first about the differences. Well, the name is different. Instead of get all albums, it's get search albums. Get all albums had nothing passed into it. This has passed into it the value that was in that text box. If there's nothing in the text box, it should return everything. All right, so in other words, when I run this and I come in here and I go to my main page and I click album search with nothing in here, it returns all 15 albums. That's exactly what it should be doing. All right. On the other hand, if I come in here and I type in here the word the, and I click album search, now you notice I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 albums. And they all have the in the title. Rope and the Wind, Beyond the Season, The Chase, The Life, The Magic, and together has the word the in it. Now, if there's nothing in there, so if I type in hello, it just shows nothing. So there's nothing that meets that criteria. All right, which is totally fine. So let's again take a quick look at the code that makes that happen. All right. Okay, so again, we start with an empty list just like we did before. We attempt to connect to the SQL server just like we did before. All right. And in here, we open the connection. And again, I think I mentioned this the other day. I probably should have put this into a try catch because really when you try doing operations with a database, things can happen that shouldn't happen. This is going to be the phrase that we're searching for. So this is going to be anything followed by what we pass in from the text box, followed by anything. Then just as we did before, we're setting up an SQL command object. We're setting the text up. But you'll notice in here, let's look at where this may differ. Select star from albums where album name like asterisk search. Well, select star from albums where album name like term. All right. And there we had term, which was just an empty string. All right. So that was designed to show everything and return everything. This is designed, this get search albums, to just return select albums that meet criteria. All right. So we don't want, if we left this out and we left this out, I'm not going to do it. But if I remove those and I put in the, it would just look for an exact match with the. All right. But we want anything that, the can come anywhere. So we're saying any 1, 0 or more characters followed by the or whatever we put in that text box, followed by 0 or more characters. All right. So my guess is, and again, I don't feel like doing this now, but if I'd remove this and just put search in there, it wouldn't have found that thing where we had to come together. It wouldn't have found it then. This is set up virtually identically to the other one. So we're literally building in here, in this using statement, we're building 0 or more records that meet our criteria. All right, so we went over this in much more depth and breadth of coverage yesterday when we built it together. Now, we had a problem yesterday. And let me close this and go back to the main form. Everything was cool until we got to here, and then we had some problems. All right, so what's supposed to happen here is if I go to the main page and I load my data and I click, for example, on this fresh horses, it's getting the right URL, but when I click OK, I'm getting an error that says system.net web exception. It says the remote server returned an error forbidden. The remote server, I believe, is the one we're trying to access. And for some reason, it doesn't like that code. Now, everything we did prior to this is working. So in other words, I'm going to take this and I'm going to uncomment it for right now. All right. And I'm going to stop the run and start the run again. What happened here? Hold on. Oh, there it is. So when I do come in here and I load the data and I click, let's say on number 9, it says you clicked on row 8, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's correct. All right. Also, it's giving me that URL, and that is this. So if I took this, in fact, let's do this here. Let me click right here. Whoops. I don't want to do all that. I want to stretch this one out just so you can see that indeed it is working. All right. So I'll click here on 7s. And it says you clicked on row 7, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that worked. And it says this is the URL. Well, if we look at this URL, notice it's right here. It's upload wikipedia.org, Wikipedia, EN, E2 7s.jpg. So it's finding it. All right, but then it's blowing up. Now it's not blowing up right now because I took that line and I commented it out. So the idea was, okay, fine. How are we going to fix this? All right. Well, the first thing that might come to mind as far as what to do right here, let me close this, is, well, let's see. I know this works and I know all this works. So let's just grab all of this for right now and let's comment all of it out. All right, just for now. All right, so we've got our data grid view. We know what row is being clicked. All right, so a first idea that a person might have, like I said, might have is, well, let's see. I want to go and, wow, let's see, could I do this? All right, as an example here, could I come in here and could I map that up? So in other words, if I come in here and I load here and I click, show you one more time here. So if I come through here, it's going to give me an error. Don't worry about it. But if I come through here and I click right there, all right, I guess it's commented out, so it's not giving me an error. But if I click there, I want the picture from the Garth Brooks and I think it's Trisha Yearwood Christmas album. We'll use that one, Scarecrow. I want that Scarecrow picture to come in there. Well, remember one thing that we have, all right? And that is, if I go back to my code for the splash screen, we've got the pictures right here. So in other words, if I wanted to use the one for Scarecrow, and let's say that Scarecrow is number 11 here, I don't know what it is, but let's just say it's that one. Wow, why couldn't I just use that? All right. Well, the problem with this is what I want to do is I want to be, I declared this array, this global array. I made it public, but I declared it in here, but I want to be able to use it, not in my splash screen, but I want to be able to use it in my main form. All right. So in other words, I want to be able to use it in here with this picture box. So if I come through here, what I want to do is basically I want to come in here and say, okay, picture box, what I want to load in there is the name of my images array, and then whatever number that, well, wait a minute, what's going on here? It doesn't understand. There is no way, there is no such thing in here as a global variable in this language, as there is in some other languages. All right, so how do you get around that? Well, come out here to Google and you type in how to create a global C# array, okay? How do you create a global variable in a form? Well, that'd be a start. Says you can make a global array by creating a static class in a separate class file. Okay. And is there an example someplace of how to do this? Well, I went out and I looked online, and there are several, but the one I found that I kind of liked was at www.csharp csharpcorner.com/upload file slash 74. You're going to get this, so don't worry about it. CECB/static class in C sharp. If I didn't spell anything wrong, it should come up now. Yeah, I did, of course. csharpcorner.com, upload file, 74 CE, that should be 7B, not CB. All right, so static class in C sharp. And I will add this URL right now. And I'm going to put it on the screen, and we'll go back to it in just a moment. All right. But in order to be able to do this, I use that information from here. And again, I'll show you that again in just a second. All right. But it says there's a lot of talk in here, and you can read that. But it says if you come in and you create a class, and then in that class, you create variables that you make static. All right. I think there's a better example down here. Yeah, the student one. All right, so we create this class that's called student, and we make some variables in here that are public and static. Then you can use them in another class by saying the name of the variable dot what you're looking for. Now that may have made very little sense. So let's actually do this so you can see what I did here to make this work. All right, so I came back in here, and not in the class library, all right, but in our project right here. In our project, I right mouse clicked on the project, I chose add, and I chose class. We could call it anything in the world we wanted, but this class is going to, in just a minute, it's going to hold album images. So I called it album images.cs. All right. And again, as I do, I put a public here. All right. And again, this is that URL. So if you do want to take a look at this, you can. It's basically csharpcorner.com, upload file, 74CE7B, static class in C sharp. So that's fine, but what did that buy me? It bought me a lot, but you're going to have to bear with me for a second to see what it bought us. All right, I'm going to go back into my splash screen, and this whole global array that we put in here, I'm going to grab all of it. I'm going to copy it to the clipboard, and I'm going to paste it into our new class right there. Okay, now, to make sure we're using that one, I'm going to go back to my splash screen, and this whole thing that's in here, it will now be commented out. The whole thing is commented out. How do I know it's commented out? Because now I'm getting all these errors in here because it's trying to reference the images array, and it can't. All right, that's the bad news. The good news is I now have this class with this public array in there. All right, and that's enough, except I also want to put static in there, which means there's one of them that can be shared. Now, I don't know if it's static public or public static, so let me try doing it the other way. It may not matter. I don't know. All right, I thought it was public static. If it doesn't work, I'll go back and make it static public. And I'm going to do a file, save all. So now I've got a new class called album images, and all that class holds is my global image array. All right, again, this is called album images. Why does that matter? Well, now when I come back into my splash screen, Notice what happens here if I put in album images dot. Wow, it recognizes it. So it's now grabbing those array images, but it's grabbing them not from the file that we were in. So not from this particular splash screen itself, but it's grabbing them from the album images class. All right. So let me do a file save all. You'll know right away whether or not it works, because if our pictures come up, and they did, it worked. So now what I should be able to do is to go back up to the top of this program and totally remove all this. Okay. So that even cut down more so on the size of our splash screen file. But now we've got album images dot. You can see all that's out of here now. It's all out of here. So I'm going to do a file save all, and I'm going to run it one last time to make sure that that worked. All right. Okay. But I still have a problem. I still haven't fixed so that when I do this and I load the data and I click on one of these, right now I'm not putting anything in there. So I'm still getting an error. All right. Well, I'm going to do this. This is what we had yesterday, and it didn't work. We put in here image URL, just like that. Oops, and uncommented that. And it didn't like this. This is, for whatever reason, it was blowing up, I believe, because of that line. I'm not sure why, but the good news is it was blowing up on this line right here. Maybe I might have referenced the wrong line. It was blowing up right there. The good news is we don't need that anymore. I can remove that because all we need to know is the row we clicked. And we now know that. We've got row clicked. All right. So what we want to do is we want to say, whoops, try that again. We want to say in here, album images dot images and row clicked. Now, if that doesn't make sense to you, take a second. Well, it doesn't like something in here. We'll get it. All right, it's close. It's very close. Album images, dot images. Row clicked. It may be, I don't know, but let's stop the run here. All right, and let's save this. There, my error went away. So what we're telling it to do now is this. When you click a certain row in the data grid view, keep track of what that row number is. And remember, it starts at 0, and put that into a variable called row clicked. So if I click on the first one, which is Garth Brooks's first album called Garth Brooks. So if I click on that one, it'll basically, it's 0. And then I'm telling it to go and grab that same location from our album images array, which is also 0. Okay, so let's see if this works. And I'm going to do a little overkill here by testing it several times. All right, so we'll load this. There's number 1. Oh, wrong one. That one's got to be fixed. I think I'm off by 1 here. Yep, I am. I'm off by 1. So I've got everything in here except these are all off by 1. So let's fix that. All right. I don't want row clicked. I want row clicked plus 1. Remember, the 0th one that's in there. All right. The 0th one is the wrong one. All right. So let's see. Let's see if that fixed it. load our data, and let's make this bigger. So this is fun right here. Fun, gunslinger, kind of hard to read, but it says gunslinger. Christmas together, man against machine, scarecrow. Again, some of these are a little hard to read. Garth Brooks and the Magic of Christmas. Garth Brooks and the Life of Chris Gaines. Sevens, again, like I said, some are hard to read. Fresh Horses, and you can click on anything in here. There's In Pieces. There's The Chase. There's Beyond the Season. There's Rope in the Wind. There's No Fences. And there's the debut album. So we now have in here, okay, we have now gone through and reviewed quickly how to do a semi-search in here. Now, again, this is going to go away in a second, or maybe it even stays. If it stays, that's something else we should get rid of. But if I come through here and again type in the and click album search, well, really, that should probably go away. All right. So I could load, no picture or whatever if I wanted to. I can leave it there. It really and truly doesn't matter. But that could be a little bit confusing. All right. Now, what could I do? Well, one thing I could do in here, just so you see it, okay, is I could come in and put in something like this. Let's see. I don't really like doing this, but I could. So I could come in here and go into images.google.com and put in something like no picture available. All right, so we could put in something like that, no image available. We wanted to do that, or a camera, or anything we wanted. It's up to us. All right, or I could just leave it blank. Okay. So how to load an empty string into a C# picture box. Control. All right. So it's how to use this, the properties, how to draw a string on a picture box with C#. Now this may not be worth the trouble. I don't know. What I'm saying is what I'd like to be able to do is when we run this album search and we put all this stuff out there. All right. You already saw this. Okay. This was the one that we did before in here in our stop the run here. The one that we came in here and we had in our albums DAO. All right, so this is where we were printing everything. All right. And just wondering, I'm trying to figure out a good place to do this. So let's see. Again, I might get an error on this, but I'm going to try it anyway. So PB, oh, that's a picture box and it's not accessible in there. So I can't do it from in there. All right. That makes sense because that's in the class. So we'll have to do it from inside of our main form here. All right, so we're loading our search music data. We're doing all this stuff. We're calling this, we're binding it. Now we should be able to say PB current album dot, I don't know if you can say dot image. If we can say equals nothing, how about null? I don't know if that'll work or not, but I'm just trying different things here with you. So when I come in here now, and I go to my main page and I load and I choose an album, there'll be Fresh Horses. All right, now when I come in here and I choose the, and I search, that went away. And I have just my ones with the in there. That's what I wanted to have happen. All right. All I'm trying to do is I'm trying to clean this up and I'm trying to do what I can do to make this program look as professional as possible. All right. All right. One more thing then that I want to do, and then we'll talk about your homework that will be due. All right. So let me close this. Well, before that, what I want to do, what I'm eventually going to want to do here, in fact, I will close it, but eventually what I'm going to want to do here is a couple things. All right. In here, I'm going to want to I'm going to make this bigger eventually, but I want to put another data grid view down here, down there, so that when I load data in here and I click on an album, in the other one, it'll show me all of the songs that are in that album. That's what we're going to go through next week. But for right now, and I may have to jack around a little bit and change the size on this, etc. I'm not really concerned with it right now. But for right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to view my toolbox. There it is. Okay. And I'm going to put in here a group box. And I'll put it right here, right there. Well, didn't like that. It's because the program is still running. That's okay. All right. So let's go back to our toolbox, find the group box, drop it in here, and put it about right there. All right. What that's going to allow me to do in just a moment is I'm going to put in all the fields that I need in there to add a new record. And ideally, once we add the new record and we click the add new record button, that'll all be put in here in a moment. It's going to be added into this data grid view. So in other words, it's going to allow us to add a new album to our list. Let's start by naming this. And I'm going to call it GB for group box, add new album. Okay, that's first thing. Second, like we did up above, let's make this one shade darker so it sticks out a little bit. Now, if you remember, and if you don't, I'm going to show you right now, but let's see, where are we? Someplace in here. And I'll grab it right now. Just give me a second and we'll find it. I cleaned my desktop up yesterday. There we go. Now, every time that we come in here and we create a new album, that new album must have these 6 fields in it. It must have an album ID. It must have an album name. It must have an album artist. It must have an album year. It must have an album description. And it must have an album URL. All right. So we're going to do this just for something different in here. Or first of all, we don't need to add the ID because we've got it set up as an identity. Remember, that is the equivalent in SQL Server of an auto increment field. So we don't have to add that. So we only have to add these 3 or these 5 things. All right. So I'm just going to write here just so I don't forget them. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to write album name. And I'm going to write album artist. And I'm going to write here album year. And album description. And finally, album URL. Okay, so I've got all that stuff. Now, when I put this all together and I grab all of that stuff and I come in and I want to put that into here, all right, these 5 things I want to put into here. Now, I can really, on the same line, I can put in the name, the artist, and the year. That'll all fit up here. And then I can have a whole line for the description and another whole line for the URL. All right. And if you don't understand what I mean, well, just give me a second and hopefully you will. All right. So let me come in here and go back to my toolbox. All right, I'm going to stretch that out a little bit. Let's try that again. All right, for now at least, I'm just going to grab my labels. So there's one label. And we will lighten this one so that it'll show up. So there's one label. In fact, let's make this even darker than the other one is. That doesn't work very well. Let's make this label white. Okay. All right. So we're going to have a label, and that label is going to be followed by a text box. We're going to have to resize all of this stuff in just a moment. All right. So let's start by doing that. So this first field that's in here, so I don't forget them, is album name. So this label will be LBL album name. All right. And the text on it will be album name. All right. Now, as I normally do in here, I'm going to come in and I'm going to change the auto size from false to true. All right. So I've now got this. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger, about like that. I don't know. I may have to resize it some more still. I don't know. I don't really care right now. But I want to make this bigger, not as big as I normally do where I got these size 20, but let's make them, because they're 8 right now, which is not big at all. So let's make it about 12. All right, 12 bold and Arial. All right, so that doesn't look too bad. All right, we may even be able to make it bigger than that, but that's okay, I think, at least for right now. So there's the album name. Now I'm going to take that and I'm going to center it. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to center it. All right. And then I'm going to copy it 2 more times. Oops. I don't know why how I did that, but I did. All right. So we've got the album name. Then the next one is supposed to be the album artist. So in fact, we made this one already. This is LBL album name. So let's make this TXT album name right there. TXT album name. All right. This will be album artist. So we'll make that LBL album artist. All right. And we will put the text in there of album artist. So that's in there. This will be TXT album artist. Okay. And the next thing I want to do very quickly here is I want to move these over. Wait a bit. Why? Because I want this to be bigger, because it's the name of the album and it could conceivably be bigger. So the size of that one is 266.26. So I want to make this one about the same. All right, that looks a little bit better as far as I'm concerned. And then finally, we're going to come in here and I'm going to put in the album year. All right, this doesn't look perfect, but it's not terrible either. So this will be LBL album year. And this will also say album year. All right, and this will be TXT album year. All right, now I'm going to make this a little bit wider, like that. And then I'm going to grab this. I'm going to copy it to the clipboard. In fact, I'm going to grab both of these. I'm going to copy them to the clipboard. I'm going to paste. All right. And this will now become LBL album description, just DESC should be fine. And I'm going to put the same thing here, album DESC. All right. But this, which is going to be TXT album desk or album description, I want to make that as wide as I can make it. So in other words, I'm going to put it out to here. All right. Because that's the description. So I want it to be a lot bigger. All right. And finally, let's grab this. Let's copy it. Let's paste it. And that'll go down here. And this is going to be our URL. Yeah, make this a little bit, whoops, a little bit bigger. There. So this will be LBL album URL. And this will be, it will have to say album URL. I keep doing that. There we go. And then finally, this will be TXT album URL. All right, let's go and take this and lock it, which should lock. Oh, I thought it would lock everything that was in there, but I guess it doesn't. Hopefully that's just about everything. Lock controls. All right. Now, it doesn't look fantastic, but again, it's serviceable. It's functional to my knowledge. I don't think I missed naming anything. So let's double check that to start with. So I'm going to come in here and just open this. You can see I'm getting a lot of controls in here. I think the group box probably what, or maybe I did rename that. Yep, add new album. Oh, I missed something. I need a button in here that I want to click to actually add the album. So let me do this. I'm going to unlock this control and I'm going to make it smaller, about there. Okay. And then I'm going to come back to my toolbox and I'm going to bring in a button because that's when I want to actually add the album. Okay. So we'll do it like that. So it looks kind of nice. All right. Again, that isn't perfect, but it's not terrible either. Okay. We'll just do it like that. And this is going to be called BTN add new album. And we'll put the text in there of add new album. Like that. Well, the text that's in here is 12, so let's make this 12 as well. So we'll do the same thing, 12, bold, and Arial. There. And again, hopefully everything is locked into place here. Now, this is, for lack of better words, when we start talking about, for example, coming in here and setting a tab order and that, it's kind of becoming a nightmare almost because there's just so much junk in here. Technically, we probably should have created this. Maybe I'll have you guys do that later. Pull this out and put it in as its own form. I don't know. All right. Let's take a quick look. So I'm going to save it. It doesn't work yet. It doesn't do anything, but there's not really that much code that we have to add. So there it is. So I want to be able to add information here and have it appear up here once I click that button. All right. And there really and truly isn't a whole lot that we're going to have to put in here. All right. At least I don't think there is. And we'll see if it works. Okay. So we've got this add new album. I'm going to open that up. There's our add new album. And again, because I don't like to put the code right in there, I'm going to call add album to albums table. I mean, I'm really trying to go out of my way here to be self-documenting as far as what I'm doing. All right. Okay, so there that is. Now it's not going to do anything yet because we haven't told it to. All right. But what we want to do is we want to go in and we want to create a new album, and we want to base it on what we've got here, 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 and here in those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fields, which again correspond to these 5 fields. All right. Let's see if we can do that. Oops. All right. So I want to create a new album. So I'm going to say album. I could call it A, it doesn't matter, equals new album. All right. And then inside of here, I'm going to fill up all my stuff. All right, I'll need a semicolon at the end of that because this is basically I'm creating a new variable. So the album name is going to be equal to txt album name dot text. All right, the album artist is going to be equal to txt album artist dot text. In fact, these should be commas because this is all part of the same variable, not semicolons. And this is wrong. That should be album artist. Okay. Then we've got album year. Now remember this right here, I can't do this. I can't say txt album year dot text. I can physically type it in, but I'm trying to take a string value and put it into an int value, which of course it doesn't like. But the good news is, remember, we've got int 32 dot parse. We can use that and tell it to parse it. All right, and the last two are pretty simple. Album DESC equals txt album DESC dot text. Oops. And album URL is equal to txt album URL dot text. That's everything. All right. And believe it or not, we don't have much more to put in here. Okay, line stuff up a little bit here. Okay, so we've got that. All right, that's fine. What else do we want to do here? Okay. We basically have to go in and tell it to add a new album, right? Well, we've got let's see. We'll have to go in and in our album DAO, we're going to have to create a new add album class. All right. And that should make sense because what's in here right now in our album DAO, the only thing that this handles right now is selecting everything, which is right here, and selecting things based on a search term, which is right here. But we have nothing in here right now to be able to add an album. So let's put something in there to do that. All right. So how did we do these other ones? We said in here, these were public lists. We'll do the same kind of way. I'm going to just do it a public int add new album. Okay. And we'll be adding an album, and let's just call it A. Okay, now we're getting an error because it says it's returning an int, but we don't have it. We're not returning anything right now. That's why we're getting that error. All right. Well, the first thing we have to do is very similar to what we've done before. First thing we want to do here is connect to the SQL server. In fact, I should say attempt to connect. All right. So we've done this before. That's just SQL connection equals new SQL connection, and we have to pass it in that connection string. All right, nothing new there. We've done that before. All right, how did we do it before? Constring, sorry. I'm wondering why that didn't work, but that's why. Here we go. All right, we're still getting that error because we're still not returning anything. We're going to fix that in a minute. After we attempt to connect, we want to open the connection. So connection dot open. All right. Now we have to define an SQL statement to insert the new album. All right. Now this is going to be a little different from what we did before. Just so you know, it's going to be a little different. All right. Now we don't have to worry again about putting in the ID because it's an auto increment field because we use that identity property. All right. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say SQL command equals new SQL command. And now we're going to put in the command. All right. And it's not a lot of typing, but it's a bit. So insert into albums. All right. Insert into albums. Okay. What do we want to put in here? Well, we want to put in here the album name. We want to put in here the album artist. We want to put in here the album year. Remember, we got these 5 fields. We want to put in here the album description. I don't think there's, let's see. I don't think there's a word wrap that's in here. I'm trying to wrap this, but I don't see it. All right, an album description. And finally, our album URL. Okay, that's the first part right there. But we have to let it know what those values are. All right. So in order to put in those values, like I said, that's why I said this is a bit of typing here. All right. So we type in here values. And those are going to be at album name. I'll just make it all lowercase. At album artist. At album year. At album description. And at album URL. And that double quote. Okay. Connection. Now, the good news is it hasn't given me any errors. Bad news is this is very hard for you to read. So what I'm going to do in just a second is I'm going to copy it and I'm going to throw it out onto the into a different editor and make it bigger so you know, or smaller, just adjust it so you can see it. All right, so we've got all that. Now we have to tell it what these parameters are. So command dot parameters dot add with value. And what we want to tell it is, hey, when you are doing at album name, what that is a dot album name, like that, and we're gonna have to put in all 5 of these. All right, so let me just grab this, put it like this. All right, so album name, album artist, album year, album description, and album URL. All right, it's getting there, but there's still a couple more things we have to do. We're still getting this. All right. Now, we're going to say int num rows, and this, if this works, it'll return 1, and if it doesn't work, it'll return 0. But we want to say command dot execute. Now, in the past, we've said execute reader there. We don't want to do that. We want to say non-query. All right. And then connection dot close. And oops. And finally, return num rows. So let's look at this whole thing here. First of all, it's going to break if I put this into multiple lines, but I wanted to show it to you anyway. All right. So I'm showing it to you over multiple lines, even though I wouldn't normally do this. Well, it put in there a plus sign, so maybe it did take that with a plus sign. I didn't think it would. All right. So let's look at it like this. Taking it from the top, we attempt to connect. Here, I don't need a comment. We're just opening the connection. Here, we're defining the SQL statement. This is an insert statement. Remember that when you are working with projects like this, we are working and trying to build a CRUD project. CRUD is an acronym which stands for create, read, update, and delete. Right now, the only thing that our application can do is it can read. This is the create, but we use an insert for here. So this says, I'm going to make a new SQL command. Insert into the albums table the name, the artist, the year, the description, and the album URL. These names that are right here, those names have to be the same names that we used when we created the database in here. All right, because that's what we're inserting, basically. All right, these are basically those values that we're putting into right there. Those are the values that we are putting into the text boxes. Here we're associating them. All right. I have no idea if this is going to work or not, but I'm sure as heck going to try it in just a moment. All right. Now, we're not done yet because there's one more thing I want to do, and that is I want to go back into our main form here. All right. We did all this. We set up the album, but okay, we didn't associate it with anything. So in other words, I want to come down here now and I want to say albums, DAO, albums, DAO equals new albums, DAO, int result equals albums, DAO, dot that add new album that we just wrote, and we want to pass it in the album. That's everything that we just filled up in here. All right. And then finally, we can do a message box. dot show, and we'll just say number of new albums inserted. Okay, plus, well, that's the result right there. That's what we want to use is the result, but we should really be nice and say result.toString. All right. And then we will just put in here new record inserted. And I'll put a question mark there because if it's a 1, the record was inserted. If it's a 0, the record could not be inserted. So I'll put in here my message box buttons. Sorry about that. Message box buttons dot OK. And this is information, so message box icon dot information. And that should be everything that we've got to do. Let's see if it works. All right, now before I am running it, so that's fine. I'm going to keep it up here, but I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do this. I'm going to go and Google. In fact, I'll go to Wikipedia. Wikipedia.org. Then I'm going to put Garth Brooks in here. It's got Garth Brooks. It's got album. Yeah, that's fine. Just do it like this. Now, those are the albums that I used, right? All these. The ones that are, I know that's in here someplace. There was a listing of his albums. But what I want is I want to come down here and I want to see if there's anything else that's in here. So let's see. These are the ones that I used. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Well, I must have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Those are the ones I used. All right. So let's see. So this is all Garth Brooks albums. I'm looking for one that I don't have. Well, there's one, The Ultimate, right there. Garth Brooks, The Ultimate. See that? All right. So I'm going to do a couple things here. It's just called The Ultimate Hits. All right. So I'm going to right mouse click on this image and I'm going to copy the image address. And for now, at least, I'm just going to throw it right into here. Right there. Okay. That's the first thing. Now I need the title. And I'll throw that. I'm going to grab all this stuff and just throw it up there. So let's see. The URL actually goes last. There's the title. So that's album name, Garth Brooks, The Ultimate Hits. The artist is Garth Brooks. All right. I need the year and some kind of a description if I can find it. Well, you can see what's in there too. There's a lot of songs in there. All right, so let's see. I'm looking for a year here. I'm just trying to be honest. So 2016. Okay, so that's the year. So I now have the name, I have the artist, and I have the year. And I have the URL. All right, and we'll just put it here for some, wait, so we have something. Some of the greatest hits ever done by Garth. I'm making this up. Okay, so this is what I'm going to put into those boxes, just so you know. So I'm going to come in here and grab this. Garth Brooks, The Ultimate Hits. We got the program running, right? Main page. So I'm going to go here. Garth Brooks, The Ultimate Hits. All right. The artist is Garth Brooks. I can just type that. The year was 2016. All right. The description, again, I just made this up, is right there. All right. Maybe I should have that left justified. It probably would look better. It's no big thing one way or the other, because the same thing's going to happen here with the URL. All right. And let's click Add New Album. Number of new albums inserted, 1. I should have cleared out all these fields, so I'll have to do that. But let's load our data and let's see if we've got a new album. Garth Brooks, The Ultimate Hits, Garth Brooks, 2016. Some of the greatest hits ever done. Okay. And can we click on there and get a picture? No. All right. And that's why. So this will now have to change. Okay. It says index was out of range, and it was. So that'll take a little bit of work to get that picture to show. I forgot all about that. So that's one thing I'll have to look at for Monday of next week. All right. So the way we're accessing this right now could be better. All right. And I've already, in my mind, I'm already trying to think of a way to fix that. And that's not a big thing. It really and truly isn't. I'm happy as heck that all of this stuff at least appears to have worked. Now, after we do all this, I'm going to call clear out add new record fields. It's going to give me an error because, of course, that isn't written. Okay. I don't know why it's not there. It is. So public and private, I guess that doesn't matter. Private void, clear out all these. So I want to say in here, txt album name dot text equals nothing. Txt album artist dot text equals nothing. Txt album year dot text equals nothing. Txt album description dot text equals nothing, and txt album URL dot text equals nothing. So that should just clear everything out when we get done, which is really, to be honest with you, we should have done anyway. Okay. So now with what we have done today, and I'll go back and I'll review this again on Monday. All right. But I want you to do the best you can to try to put this information in here. I'm asking a lot of you. I understand that. But we now have an application. It's not perfect. And don't worry in here. So again, when I load, notice it's persisting. It's still in there. So I can go now and I can add new stuff in here. I'm going to have to make this bigger. So literally, I'm going to move that up so I can move that down because I'm going to want another data grid view down here next week. All right. But think about this once. How could we do this? How could we set this up? How could we set that up so that it would handle new records? Well, I'll give you a hint. We've made that an array. We probably want to make it an array list so that we can add to it. And we'll want to add when we put that in, we'll want to add that to the array list so that we're able to click and get that. So if yours doesn't, this still works, but it blows up for any new thing that you put in. That is okay. So let's talk about what I want you to do. All right. I want you to replicate what I've done, but I'm going to ask that you do one more thing. So I'm going to send this to you in just a little bit. Where is it? There it is. All right. So it says here, C#, AWD 1100, C# programming DB project part 1, 100 points. Garth Brooks database project part 1 requirements. Number 1, you have to prove to me that you successfully downloaded SQL Server Management Studio on your machine by taking one or more screenshots. How do you do that? Well, you come into here and you go down to here and you click there, and this says Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. Yours might be 19, which is okay. That's partial proof, but the other proof is to start this up. And have it come up, take a picture of this. Again, should have your name in it, not mine, of course. All right, so that's the first thing. Cancel out of there. That's 10 points. Next, add the code that we've done in class for the splash screen and for the main form. I want you to use the database name, which was Garth DB, no space. And I want you to copy in all of the album and all the song information, field names, the data that we've put in our, that I gave you before. In other words, all of this stuff. So everything that's in here, you got this sent to you 2 days ago. All of that. Again, we're going to use this second table next week when we start talking about joins. All right, so that's the second thing. Now, in addition, this is where I'm asking you to go out and do something on your own. If you remember, and what I always forget what page that was, but I'm going to check right now. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say, excuse me. Let's see. I think it was page 212. I always forget, but I think that's what it was. So let's bring up our book. Not 543. That isn't it. Maybe it was 219. And there it is. I want you to add that validator class in. I want you to put that into the music library. And I want you, before you go and add the new data, I want you to run the, well, remember there was an is present in here someplace. Oh, that's page 2, so let's go back one. I want you to, you're going to basically use this kind of code. All right, something similar to that. But I want you to do the, again, you will look at the code on 218 and 219. And you should be using the is present, all right, to see if something's there. And that's for all of your fields that are string fields. And the is int 32, and that'll be for the album year, and the is within range. I looked it up on the internet, and Garth Brooks was born in 1962. All right. Reason I'm telling you that is literally the minimum year you should allow would be 1962. And I went out 100 years. Let's hope he lives 100 years. And that's 2062. All right. So all those are explained on here. but I want you to go in and bring in the Muroc validator.cs class into the music library, then use the methods to make sure that those 4 fields are not empty. Those are all of our string fields, and that our numeric field indeed is numeric. It's an integer, and it's within this range. All right. So out of your 100 points, 10 for sending me those 2 screenshots, 20 for copying the stuff we did, 20 more for adding the new stuff. So that's 50. Then 10 points for you redesigning the splash screen, because I want it to be yours. I don't want you to copy mine. Make your own splash screen. You can also redesign the main page if you want to, but you don't have to. That's 10 points. 20 points, I want you to be able to prove to me that you understand what we're doing here. So I'm asking you to provide documentation in your program. All right, and notice what it says. Please note that this is worth 20 points, so I'm expecting quite a bit of documentation. So in other words, if all you do is just put a line here and there, you're not going to get all 20 points. Finally, I want you to upload a working copy of your code to a new GitHub repo you create called DB Project, and make sure you provide an invite to me. All this is to be done by 11:59:59 Sunday. You have today approximately 2.5 hours. You have 3 hours and 50 minutes tomorrow. You have 3 hours and 50 minutes on Friday. All right. So that is approximately 11 hours I'm giving you to work on this. All right. As it says, it's due by 11:59:59 p.m. Sunday. I will be checking GitHub throughout the day on Sunday. Now, we're getting too close. So I'll check this Sunday and I'll check it again on Monday. But on Monday, it should say that the project was uploaded a day ago. For every day that it's late, you're going to lose 10%. So if you turn it in 2 days late, the most you can get on it is an 80. And finally, as it says, we will continue on with the project next Monday. So I want to do 2 more things and then I'm going to be done. Give me about 5 minutes. I want to go one more time over what you're supposed to be doing here. 10 points for you to take a couple screenshots to prove to me that you were able to successfully install SQL Server Management Studio onto your machine. 20 points for putting in all of the code that we've done so far. So you're going to have to go back and look throughout this. I'm not putting a GitHub repo out there. I'm making you do some work. There really isn't going to be a lot more that we're going to add next week. I shouldn't say it. There's enough. But I think we put in more this week than we'll put in next week. All right. Then I want you to go in and add that Muroc validator class. When you add that validator class, I want you then to go back into your code where we're doing this. So all of the stuff that you've got in here, all of this will be in the try block where you're going to try to do that, but you're going to have to meld or combine that with the stuff that's in here. All right. This you're already going to have. You don't have to write any of the stuff for the validator class. You shouldn't have to, but you're going to have to go and look at this try catch that's in here. All right. And probably look at the is valid data too. All right. Now looking in here, I don't know it. I thought there was an is present. This is just is decimal. All right. So to make sure that there's something in those other ones, we've got is decimal, etc. See if you can write your own is present. You can either put it in here or just write your own, and just basically just say if there's nothing in there, you want to handle it like this, but you want to say a value must be provided or whatever. All right. If you're totally confused over what I'm asking you to do, it's then your responsibility to get a hold of me and let me know so I can work with you on it. Redesign the splash screen to make it your own, add internal documentation, upload a working copy to your GitHub repo, and send me an invite. All right. So finally, lastly, what we did today. All right, let's just take a quick look at what we did today, and I'm putting this program for now to sleep, away, whatever you want to call it. So in our main form today, one thing that we did was we went in and we added this, and I'll leave it there in blue. All right, that made it work so that other than any new albums you put in, this will show you pictures of the first 15 albums. All right, and it's my responsibility by Monday, and probably what I'm going to do, if I can, to get that to work, is in here, I'm going to probably change this to an array list. All right. And then, it's got a size, but then when we add another one in there, it should double then to do that. All right. I'm not sure if that'll work or not, but we'll see. All right. So we put in that code right there. Then we went in and we put in our new thing to add a new album to the table. We called it Add Album to Albums Table. Here is where we're doing the work of actually filling it up based on what were in those text boxes. But then we have to call our new albums AD or DAO, our data access object, in there. All right. And in that albums DAO, that's what was in here. That's the whole routine. Let me make it a little smaller. There. That's everything. So you can do what you want to do. Take screenshots or do whatever. And again, hey, you guys are going to be getting, or should be getting, course evaluations in a couple weeks. And if you think what I'm doing here is unfair, put that down. You know, he's giving us too much to do. He's not helping us enough or whatever. You put down whatever you need to put down. Just be honest. That's all I'm asking. All right. So if you do come up with any questions, I will be online today. I will be online tomorrow. I will be online on Friday. When I say online, I just mean I'm going to be on the system, but there's no more taping that will be done today. There is no taping at all that will be done tomorrow. There is no taping at all that will be done on Friday. What I will do is, again, we'll start up on Monday, and I will email you in just a couple minutes. I will be emailing you the link to this tape, to this video that I'm creating right now, as I always do with these emails that I send you every day after class comes in. All right. I always update this every day. This will also be out on my YouTube channel, and I will make sure that you get a copy of this, which was your requirements for part 1. So next week, we're going to add to this. We are going to add to this next week. All right. And I guess see where it goes from there. All right. In an ideal world, at least we'll do it kind of like this week. We'll finish it up. I was going to have 3 parts to this. Maybe we'll only have 2 parts. I don't know. But if we're done by next week, Wednesday, then you get basically a whole week to finish this up and to do your electronic portfolio. All right. Questions, jpscott@rankin.edu. I will talk to you next week. Have a nice weekend.